All right, crew. What I wanted to do right now was to essentially help you determine what sort of gearing you would need based on whatever terrain it is that you're planning on tackling. So in this situation, last year I went out and I did the Masters Nationals, which was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and ended up decently happy with how it all went. But there's one key part of this, which is the heartbreak guardrail start to Ranchitos Road. So step one here, having something like Strava, having something like Training Peaks is a great way to take a look at segments. And the key when you're looking at a segment is you want to take a look at how fast you are going. So I'm going to look at the kind of the key part. Last year I was I had way too big of a gear. By big, I mean too hard of a gear. And I ended up on this climb. I had been off the front, so I'd done like 350 for 20 minutes or something that culminated with the top of this. But went into it with the legs tired, was off the front in a group of 3 or 4, and was able to ride it more at my own pace. But even at my own pace, the cadence average was 65 on this. But if we analyze it, we can actually kind of take out the front roll-in part of this and go to kind of where the cadence settles. So cadence is going to be that pink line, third one down. So I'm just going to highlight kind of the hardest part of this whole thing before we got to the top here. And I was going 6.8 miles per hour. Clearly that is not very fast. It says I'm a Cat 4. Watts per kilo, around 5. I was actually a little heavy at this race last year, so my watts per kilo probably would have been lower, actually. But one of the things I want to look at here is that speed. Okay, so 6.8, we can see speed was holding pretty steady there, 6-ish to 6.3, okay? What you also want to do, another important thing here, this was nice because I could ride it at my own pace. It was not nice because I was in way too low of a cadence. Some of it you can see there, bottom right, 55 RPMs for some of this, which is not good. I had not done much 55 RPM work. But what you can do as well, if I go back to this overview, I can go back, let me go back to that segment. And some of the folks from my race they're also on Strava. So Kip Taylor, he's the overall guy, but that was from a different year. But if we go and look at Hausler was in my race, he ended up staying with both times over. You can see they were smashing it. So 9.4 miles an hour for them the first time up. Chris Reichert, one of the Mike's Bikes guys out in California, he was there. Also in that front group, 9.4 miles per hour. So if we click on theirs, this is Strava at its best here. I can analyze now his effort up this. So if we click on Analyze, I can then see, you can see he had a big surge at the bottom. And then kind of settled in through the middle. But if we look at where they settled in, I'm going to take a peek. So he was at pretty low cadence too, 66 RPM. But if we look at this 9 mile per hour average, kind of through the center of that, overall they were at 9.4 miles per hour. The second time up, I'm going to highlight how the second time looked. So much lower power overall that second time versus the first time. So the selection had been made. I got dropped on this climb the second time up, but a little bit lower power, as you can see, 434. They were still rolling, though, but 8.5 miles per hour as opposed to 9.5 miles per hour. His cadence was a little higher on that. So this is kind of what I'm going to use, okay? So hopefully, he was climbing at 6.2 watts per kilo. That was greatly higher than my 5 watts per kilo. Which is why they put darn near a minute into me on the climb. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use kind of the speed that I climbed at by I'm going to go to Sheldon Brown's bicycle gear calculator here, and 27-inch wheel, that's a normal road bike let's go to 700cc wheel here. And it's not going to make too much of a difference. I'm going to go 25s on there. Crank length, I'm 175, but again, the crank length should not mess with it. Here's one that you want to do. I'm going to say 90 RPMs, and I want to know what my mile per hour will be at 90 RPMs. Then you got to take a look at what's your front chainring. So mine's a 36. Typically for a road bike, they're going to be 34, 36, 39. One of those three, typically. Those are kind of the three most common. I'm not concerned with the other end of the range. I'm not concerned with what a 52 by 11 is going to get me as far as high end is concerned. I'm more concerned just about that climb. So last year, I believe I was on a 25 or 28 maybe. So I'm just going to toss in some of these. Right now, my new bike has a 36-30 big tooth. I could go to a 34 on the big cassette ring, the biggest ring on the back, the easiest gear. So I'm going to go and take a look by hitting calculate at what these four different cogs in the back would give me from a speed standpoint at 90 RPMs. So remember, I was climbing more at like that 6.5-ish mile per hour, 7 mile per hour. So at 90 RPMs, that would give me 7.5 miles per hour. So that's a mile an hour faster than what I was climbing. I feel as though I could have climbed faster if I'd had a better gearing. That second time up the climb, they were at 8.5. Remember, if we looked at Chris Reichert's power and data, he was climbing about 8.5. The first time up, they were at that 9.4-ish. So I'd have been okay with a 28, assuming I could spin it at 90 at that, at those power levels, assuming I could hold that power. But ideally, I'd like to be 90 or possibly even a little more than that. It's going to allow me to get over the top of the pedal stroke a little easier. I just felt so downstroke heavy. So at 90 RPMs or a little higher on a 30 or a 34, that's kind of where, it's kind of in between, right? So I'm going to err on the side of caution here and go with a 34. That's going to allow me to push a little bit higher RPM on the climb if I need to climb at 8.5 miles per hour. What I don't want to do is go with a 25, because then I'm forced to climb at 10.2 miles per hour at 90 RPMs, which instead is going to go the other way, right? It's going to take me down super low. So what we can also do is, so last year I climbed at around a 55 to 60. The overall average was 65 or whatever. But we can calculate now here. So now we can see the 90 and we can see the 60. So it's 60 RPMs in a 36-25, so 36 front ring, 25 rear. Now I'm at 6.8. At 28 RPMs, I'm at 6.1. So this is probably what I was on last year, actually. I bet I was on a 28. I don't remember. But I bet I was on that 28. So last year, same RPM, 60 RPMs, I could have climbed at 5 miles an hour instead. So it just shows you the extra. If we kind of look where this crossover, I guess there's not really a crossover. 34, yeah, I was going to try to see if there was a crossover here between the two numbers. If we did 80 RPMs, we'd see that. But what this should do is should allow me to be at a higher cadence. I now am more comfortable, knowing that, okay, 7.5 miles an hour, 90 RPMs. That means if I need to go up to 8 miles an hour, I can either shift down to keep 90, or I can just rev my cadence up a little bit more. Typically when I'm time trialing, I'm closer to that 97 to 100 RPMs. So this is kind of valuable information. If you have questions on this, feel free to let me know. Big thing is you got to go look at your climbing speeds. This is something I did with a different athlete who was going to be doing a longer sustained climb out in Colorado. And what we did was looked at, okay, what were your climbing speeds in the past, and what sort of cadence are you wanting to hold? So it's the exact same process. What cadence do you want to hold? What speed do you think you can do? So for me, I think I can do this I think I can do 8.5 in a, if I don't go into the breakaway. I think I can make that happen. So I could even be okay maybe with that 30, but I want this little bailout here of the 34 to allow me to go, higher RPMs. So if you got questions on this, let me know. It's kind of a useful thing here. There's a lot of options. You can do kilometers per hour. You can do your gear inches. So for juniors and stuff, gear inches can be important. You can also throw in different chain rings. So if you're kind of someone who's trying to decide what chain ring to go with, you can do that. And for now, that's all I got. If you got questions, holler. And hopefully that was helpful for you.